Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the Allegheny Northern and N scale. Today we're going to do an update. It is for May and most of June. I know this video is just a little bit late, but follow along and I'll go through the few updates that we have, and we'll watch some trains run as well. Okay, first off, you may have remembered in the last video I talked about picking up a couple of hobby shop random buys, and one was this silver high side gondola that I was pretty excited about. Well, I went to the hobby shop again. This time it was a different hobby shop, and they had a 6-pack lettered for Southern, and I didn't want to pass them up. It was the last set. Come to find out that this set was discontinued, so I'm glad that I got it. But so there's a 6-car set there. I know it's not really progress, but it's definitely something. Probably the biggest item that was completed this month was the first actual kit that was designed for the upper level. This is the lumber shed. It's a Walther's kit. I'll be honest with you, I had a little bit of trouble with this guy. It would probably have been better served as a wood kit versus a plastic kit, but it made it work, and it's actually it's a nice kit once it gets built. So I went for a faded, once painted, sort of run down look on my office. I think I was able to achieve that fairly realistically. And then with the shed, I went for just an aged wood look, and I think that I got that. There is a lot of detail in the racks inside. It's kind of hard to see, so I plan on putting lighting and some lumber in there to really fill out the detail, especially because you're going to see it, because it's going to be up here. It's going to sit back on this track, so the inside's going to be visible. It's right at eye level, so detailed interior there with some people is going to make it really pop. So just finished that kit. The other thing that I did here is I'm working on completing the scenery right between the fascia and the engine terminal. So nothing great and exciting, but it's coming along here. Just take a pause out here. I've got a mixed freight running through town, and our coal drag is going to be catching up to it here and passing it, heading in the opposite direction. So I do have some videos that I put some other locomotives, some other trains on the track, and I will have those in a rail fanning video coming up. Picked up a couple of containers. These are the Jacksonville terminal containers. Really nice containers. I'm very impressed with them. I think for the future intermodal yard, I'm going to use them almost exclusively if I can. They're just really nice containers. They do have a magnet system inside them that holds them together. I don't know if you saw that jump there, but that makes them. You don't have to glue them into the train cars. You don't have to glue them in stacks. They just clip right in. So that's definitely a win in my Speaking of the intermodal yard, you'll notice that it was supposed to be a spring construction, and there's no intermodal yard. And that was because the price of wood right now is up almost 300% from this time last year. So not exactly sure when I'll be getting this started. You can thank our politicians for screwing with the economy over the last 6 months, and hopefully this gets straightened out and I can get the intermodal yard built. In the meantime, I have found some kits and some other items that I've purchased and set aside in preparation for this, so that one day there will be an intermodal yard. So over the last month, I've been working a lot on operations, actually operating the layout. So one of the things that I did was take this old Walther's well car kit, which was not running very well. I replaced all of the trucks, all of the couplers with micro trains, new couplers, and right now it is running absolutely beautifully. So that is one of the major repairs that I made. Once again, I think everybody knows at this point that I'm a huge fan of micro trains and will swear by them. So here's another fine example. Okay, last, certainly not least, what I have been working on is, in the last month, I've actually spent more time running trains than I have actually building them. And the reason for that is because I want to start getting into operations and sort of planning how trains will move about the layout. And I know you're thinking to yourself, well, you did that out of order. You're supposed to plan how that's going to go and then build the layout. I don't disagree with that. I just didn't do it that way. So I have a pretty robust operating scheme at this point. So what's going to happen is a freight train, mixed freight, very similar to our Conrail right here, is going to drop off a cut of cars. And those cars are going to be dropped right here in the passing siding. And they're going to be sorted by our local here. And then it's going to continue on its way around the layout. And it's going to drop its other cars off at the far end. At that point, if there are cars that need to go into staging, the empty locos will take those. Otherwise, they'll run light either back to the engine terminal or into staging. And then there'll be another set of locals, which you can see it's local sitting right there, that'll work that town. So that one train will basically break off into two trains. The coal train, which has an end destination here of the power plant, but it originates on the upper level. So what will happen is CSX will handle all trains up here. That'll be the staging, that will be the loading of the empties, and there's our staging yard right there. So it'll prepare all of the coal trains, and then it'll then take those trains through the wall and into staging, where the CSX locomotives will disconnect and will return back to the mine. So there's our CSX train right there. That's going to be the mine shift locomotives, and then here's just an inbound CSX freight train. And from there, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to have an interchange line, so say a short line, take the trains from the staging, which is on the other side of that wall, down the helix into the small yard that's sitting over there, or if I'm just going to have Norfolk Southern to come up, pick up the trains, and run through the helix. It's not determined yet. I'm going to try both ways and see which one I like better. The train will then make, I figure, no less than 2 loops around the layout, since I do have a loop layout. And then I'm going to have them drop off the cars in the right here at the power plant. So that's currently how the operating scheme is going. I am going to have a video later in the month that is going to show that operation, and you can follow along as I muddle through that. And then, of course, there are going to be industries up here that are third railroad, which is going to be represented by the Wheeling and Lake Erie, is going to shift and switch up here. So right now I've got 2 tracks for a lumber yard. I have a third undefined track. It's going to be a cold storage. I don't know if it's going to be a beverage or a meat packing plant, something here. And then I've got 2 other locations that I may make for some other industries. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do there yet, so that's why they are left empty. And I may change the track configuration just a bit, but I don't want to get too crazy because this is pretty much the extent of my reach without being on top of something. So right now if the tracks move back any further, they're out of reach, and I'll start knocking over everything in front. So that's pretty much where we're going to end. And then of course there's my lonely bridge to a intermodal yard that isn't there. Now, although that operating scheme only picked up on a couple of the industry switching areas, I also have the quarry that'll need switched. So this is going to provide stone not only as ballast for the railroad, but also to maintenance of road maintenance crews. So there's going to be a location for this stone to go to. That'll need switched as well. I think this is going to end up being its own, because I'll run unit trains, so this will have its own train. That'll take care of that. And then we haven't talked about passenger operations. So right now there are a total of 4 stations and 1 major terminal. So here's one station here. You've all seen the main station that I think makes just about every video on the far side. Yep, right there. Okay, we've got the terminal that's being scratch built. I've not done anything with this at all. I have found some pieces and parts that I want to incorporate. I knew this was going to be a long project. It was going to be a slow project. So right now it's sort of represented by a mismatch of parts and pieces, just some place to park the trains. But then I've got 2 small terminal, like rural stations. Here's an example of one right here. There's one here, and then there's one that is over by the coal mine over there. And those are also going to represent points for Amtrak trains to stop. So I haven't worked those into the scheme yet. And the other thing that I haven't picked up, but I am probably going to at some point, is there is the Metro Rail commuter. Although it doesn't fit my layout geographically, I just really like those trains. I think they would look really cool in a pull push operation. So I mean, I've already got a coaster on the layout, and quite frankly that doesn't belong here either. So I'm going with it's my railroad, and if you don't like what I'm doing, then don't watch the videos. But I'm thinking that I may do a little bit more with operations as far as Amtrak goes and passenger service. So here's the major problem. Most times I am a single operator, so I'm gonna have to basically work in shifts. And what I mean by that is I'm going to have one train that is going to drop off the cars for the switching, and then I've got to get that train, out of the way in the clear, and then I'll begin my switching operations, and that's going to be 2 or 3 different trains. And then of course there is the staging that'll be a whole nother operation and behind the wall, and then there will also be the coal mine and everything else. So very easily could keep 3 to 4 operators busy, but I'm going to be doing it solo, so it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how this plays out. And I'll shorten the videos up for you so you can see exactly what that looks like. As we're watching the train snake through the foliage here, I would like to point out that this is, we're coming up on just past the 1-year mark of conversion from DC to DCC. And it has not been a step that I've regretted or looked back from. The layout runs beautifully, everything runs smooth. The locomotives are all paired nicely together that you see running. And it has really improved the enjoyment of the layout. There have been a few bugs along the way, a few things to figure out, but if it's something that you're sitting on the fence about, there's really no reason not to go to DCC. It is a little bit pricey. I know I had about 65 locomotives that needed converted, and it took a little bit of time to do that conversion, but it's definitely worth it. The wiring is much simpler to the layout itself. I've been using the bits and pieces of wiring that I've pulled out from DC to wire other things, accessories and whatnot, so it didn't go to waste. But it's so much simpler as far as the install goes once you have the decoder portion worked out. The other thing that I've been using as far as keeping the tracks clean, using a liquid, it's a electronics cleaner. I clean my rails once a year, and I get very reliable track. The only time that I have an issue is when I've been doing work in an area, and quite frankly, that's on me. That's not really on the on the trains, the layout of the cleaning. That's just a product of making a mess in the layout room. So if you're on the fence about either of those two techniques, I do have videos on DCC and on track cleaning. I suggest you take a look at them. I swear by the processes that I have and what I've used, and it's been very enjoyable. And now that I'm into operations a little bit more, the only thing that I wish I would have done differently is my helix has a very tight radius in it, and that causes some issues with longer trains. So I may rebuild it, but I'll be honest with you, that helix was such a pain in the ass, I'm not exactly excited about it. So I may suffer through it for a little while until I can't take it anymore, and then upgrade to a larger radius. Well, I know it was a brief update here for the last few months. It's with the weather getting warm, and there's just a lot of things to do in the yard and in the garden, and trains sort of take the back seat during the summer months. So that'll pretty much wrap us up for this month. Hope everyone's enjoying their summer, and we'll be back here with some operation videos coming up soon.